Solo stands have been a hot topic of conversation for years and still are today. There have been numerous debates on the true nature of their existence and whether or not we should allow them to thrive in our communities. But strangely enough, not many have done an in depth discussion about it on YouTube. Let's fix that, shall we? Hi, my name is Adeze, Daisy for short, and this is my channel AAA Thoughts, where my videos will be BTS focused and way longer than any Twitter thread of mine can do justice. Yes, I am still calling it Twitter. Elon Musk can choke on that. Speaking of Twitter, you can also follow my page there. Aside from posting links to my videos, I'll also be posting important updates regarding my channel and just talking about BTS in general. So follow if you're interested. But with all that self-promo out of the way, let's get back to the topic at hand, solo stands. Some of you who are watching this video might be new to BTS or even K-pop as a whole and wonder, what exactly is a solo stan? According to Urban Dictionary, the definition of a solo stan is when you like only one person in a group. The group, in this case, referring to a K-pop group. In the context of BTS, a BTS solo stan would be someone who likes and supports only one member of BTS. There's also the term diet solo, which is defined as someone who does not self-identify as a solo stan just yet, but is already on their way to becoming one. Solo stans and diet solo stans also fall under the category of being a manti, which is a combination of the words manager and anti. The term manti refers to somebody who thinks they know how to manage BTS better than BTS's own label and BTS themselves. They think their opinion is the only correct one and that anyone who disagrees with them do not have BTS's best interests at heart. So it's one of those cases where not every manti is a solo stan or a diet solo, but every solo stan and diet solo is a manti. There are multiple variations of BTS solo stans, but regardless of whether you like only 1, 2, or 3 members, the main focus of being a solo stan is that you are not OT7, meaning you don't love all 7 members. But what harm does not being OT7 do, you might ask? As long as they don't disrespect the other members, just supporting one or a few of them should be okay, right? You're not alone in thinking that. There are many people in the K-pop community who believe that solo stans are not problematic as long as they don't disrespect the other members of any given group. Because once you start going out of your way to drag the other members, that's when you become an ake. Once more, according to Urban Dictionary, an ake is an abbreviation of the Korean words aksong pin, which translates to malicious individual fan. They only love and support one or a few members of a group just like solo stans do, but Akes go the extra mile and send hate towards the members they don't like, generally because they believe their favorite member or favorite members are the only talented ones in the group. Within this definition, they even make the distinction that solo stans are not equal to Akes. And here, ladies and gentlemen, is where the problem lies. This distinction, I feel, is what allows people to justify the existence of solo stan communities. People, especially solo stans, take this distinction and milk it for all it's worth, convincing people that it's okay to be a solo stan as long as they don't disrespect the other members. But people continuously fail to ask one crucial question. What happens when solo stans disrespect the member that they're a fan of? There are several issues I want to discuss when it comes to the harm that solo stans inflict on the fandom. But quick disclaimer before I start, just so this video doesn't get too long, I will only be picking a handful of popular incidents to discuss. If I don't touch on a specific issue or make too much mention of a specific member's solo stans, that doesn't mean I'm not aware of them or think that they don't cause as much trouble, but I simply just do not have the time. I encourage you to do some digging for yourself once this video is finished. There's plenty of incidents for you to look at. Or, if you know of any that I haven't mentioned that you'd like to talk about, you can also drop it in the comments. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first issue I have with solo stans is the constant victimization of their favorite member. In the mind of a solo stan, their favorite member is always the underdog. According to them, the fandom never appreciates their favorite member the way they should be, and they believe their favorite member is constantly given the short end of the stick by the other members, their label, or both. And the craziest thing is that every solo stan and every diet solo stan will say the exact same thing about their favorite member. Why is it always him? It's so annoying, really. Why is it always him? What's up? Why always Husuk, big hit? They're trying to tell us something. Why is it always him? Why are Yoongi's parts always cut? Why is it always Jin, huh? BTS has 7 members, don't leave him out. Not gonna lie, but Jun didn't get much recognition with his latest collab, while Suga's interlude got so much attention. Why is it always him? Why does it always have to be him? He is the biggest OT7 enthusiast out there. No one deserves this mistreatment, especially this precious human being right here. Why always Tae? I know, really getting sick of it. Really. So can someone tell me why it's always Jungkook who gets treated like this in the fandom? People here will gladly defend someone who mocks his talent rather than supporting him. I'm so annoyed. Why is it always Jimin? Why do people always discredit his achievements? Why only him? And this is usually how the descent down the solo stan pipeline begins. Someone makes an inaccurate observation that their favorite member is always left out or treated differently than the other members, which leads to those who have been exposed to this observation to root for that member more to make up for whatever support is believed to be lacking from the fandom, the company, or the rest of the group. In doing so, they are exposed to more narratives that paint this member as mistreated or underappreciated, and while their sympathy for that member grows, resentment towards those mistreating that member grows alongside it, until the day they decide to fully distance themselves from the fandom and integrate into the solo stan community. Within that community, people continue to uphold the idea that solo stans are the only ones who truly love and support their favorite member, and that everyone else is simply a fake fan. And like I just said, every solo stan for every member of BTS wholeheartedly believes that their favorite member is being mistreated. So with beliefs like that, you naturally end up with tweets like these. Jin only has Seokjini's and that's the truth. Don't blame us if we become more protective by calling out these so-called OT7 accounts, knowing the fact that Jin didn't get the same support and energy from them. We can safely say that Taeyang only has KTHs. Double your focus on Jimin cause Jimin only has PJMs. Honestly, I can understand that. It's like J-Hope only has Hope Worldians. Fake OT7 stans will use him for their thirst tweets when he walks shirtless around the airport. Namjoon only has us Moon Children and it shows. Jungkook only has us JJKs. The fandom, the shippers, no one really cares about him. Yoongi only has the MYGs watching his back because armies will stab him if they get the chance. This supplements my argument that not only do solo stans victimize their favorite member, but they operate under the assumption that they are the only support system that their favorite member has. Seeing one of these tweets from one solo stan of a particular member may be convincing in isolation, but putting these tweets side by side with solo stans of other members makes you realize how ridiculous all of this is. If every solo stan believes that their favorite member is a victim, then it's more likely that all of them are simply just seeing what they want to see, and that nobody from BTS is actually being mistreated. And honestly, I could move on to the next point, but I think seeing examples of victimization in action might help cement this idea even further. One example I can think of is the way that people have been handling the release and promotion of BTS members' individual albums. For context, on June 14, 2022, BTS announced through their Bangtan dinner party video that they would be taking a break from group releases to focus on solo activities, and that each member will be releasing their own solo projects before reconvening as a group at a then unspecified time, which we now know to be 2025 through later statements. Shortly after this announcement, BTS's label Big Hit Music revealed that J-Hope would be the first member to release a solo album called Jack in the Box on July 15, 2022. With that announcement came the obvious excitement from ARMYs, eager to get new music so soon after BTS's comeback with their Proof album. But all of this came to a screeching halt when it was announced that J-Hope's physical album would not include a CD, but instead a QR code that would link you to listen to his album digitally on the Weverse Albums app. Aside from the fact that a CD-less album upset people who were avid collectors of BTS merch and so wouldn't be able to display J-Hope's album like other BTS albums they might own, another subset of people was upset because J-Hope's album being CD-less also meant that none of his album sales would count towards the Billboard 200 in the US. While sales aren't the only way to climb the charts, they are still a pretty important factor, and with a fandom as big as ours, some people thought that Big Hit was wasting a big opportunity for J-Hope to have a high-ranking chart position on the Billboard 200 in the first tracking week of his album. More fuel was added to the fire when, amidst all this discourse, came a popular account within the K-pop sphere known as TMI K-pop, an account dedicated to summarizing and sharing articles about the latest news within the K-pop industry. On July 6, 2022, TMI K-pop posted a Twitter thread summarizing some articles written about environmentally wasteful practices of some K-pop fans, where they will buy albums en masse to set records, qualify to enter fan signs, and collect photo cards, but then dump these albums once their goals had been met. These articles also talked about some of the steps some K-pop entertainment companies were taking to tackle these issues. One of these steps being HYBE, Big Hit's parent company, appointing CEO of Green Fund and environmental social governance expert Lee Mi-kyung as a new board member. Within these articles, it was stated that HYBE planned to establish a complete ESG strategy under her guidance, the journalists of these articles implying that J-Hope's CD-less album was part of this strategy. While some people didn't care all too much, they were quickly overshadowed by those who considered this blatant sabotage by HYBE, claiming that the company was selfishly using J-Hope as a guinea pig for their ESG strategy instead of giving him a proper album that would both be bought by more fans for collection purposes and actually count towards the Billboard charts. There were also weird rumors going around at some point of J-Hope's album being an NFT as well, which was just untrue, and I'm still not quite sure who started that narrative. Either way, the damage was done and people were furious, especially solo stans and their Diet counterparts. For weeks up until his album release, the weeks after his album release, and arguably even present day, people are still saying that HYBE has ruined J-Hope's official solo debut as an artist because of their need to test their ESG strategy on J-Hope instead of testing it on other groups under the label whose album productions put out way more waste than BTS's. And for the longest time, the general consensus was that J-Hope did not agree for his album to be CD-less, and that this decision was made against his will, which is where the whole victimization thing comes in. But what has J-Hope himself said about the CD-less album? On July 19, 2023, J-Hope appeared as a guest on Chuchita, BTS member Suga's drinking show. And when talking about Jack in the Box, he said, "I started out with a mixtape concept, so I worked on that in January. And since the idea was to do a mixtape, I thought I'd release a Weverse album or an LP just to commemorate the occasion. But like you said, there was a bigger need for a physical album, a full album than I expected. The fans wanted it so much, and you and Jimin would also be releasing solo albums. So the fact that I didn't have a physical album did bother me a little, and I also felt really sorry about that to the fans. So I thought I should make one. I took new photos for it and renewed everything. It's going to be a proper album, the kind that the fans wanted, that's going to be released for the first anniversary of Jack in the Box." There you have it. We have J-Hope saying out of his own mouth that it was his decision for Jack in the Box to originally not have a physical CD, since he was going for more of a mixtape kind of concept. But since so many people were unhappy at the idea of a CD-less album, he felt bad for ARMYs and eventually ended up re-releasing the album with a physical CD version that also contained added instrumental and live versions of existing tracks. This is further backed up in the "Thanks To" message that J-Hope put in the Jack in the Box Hope Edition physical album. It's a very long yet important message, so I urge you to pause this video and read it in full before continuing. But to summarize what J-Hope has said in this note, he felt sorry that it took so long for a physical CD to be released and that he could have left Jack in the Box as it originally was, but after hearing feedback, he didn't want it to become a project that we would grow to resent because of his original intention to leave the album CD-less. I'm going to be frank, I find it absolutely appalling that solo stans and Diet solos harassed Big Hit about a CD release so much that J-Hope felt the need to not only apologize for his own creative decisions, but chalk it up to his own unawareness of what people really wanted. This behavior is unacceptable, and the message it sends to BTS is that there actually is a limit to how creative they're allowed to be before people who claim to be their fans start throwing temper tantrums. As long as it doesn't harm anyone, no artist should ever have to apologize for making their art the way they want to make it. And this is just one example out of the many claims of victimization. With each new member that has dropped solo work, there have been more solo stans claiming that their favorite member is being sabotaged, like RM for example. On December 2nd, 2022, RM dropped his solo album Indigo. It had been teased since November 10th, the announcement first being posted on RM's personal Instagram, and there were many things posted by both RM and Big Hit to build up hype. But not everyone was satisfied with what was being released. November 21st, 2022, a week and a half before Indigo was released, this account tweeted, "Hope y'all don't get me wrong, but at this point, the disregard for his album has reached the ridiculous point. 10 days to release the album and we don't even have the title of the main track. this is crazy. And at surface level, one might agree with this. But in my humble opinion, this could only be considered ridiculous if it was atypical of RM's usual promotional style. The truth is, RM actually has a history of being low-key when it comes to solo projects. Back in 2018, the only heads up we received about the release of RM's second mixtape Mono was a brief announcement he made at the end of a concert in Paris only 2 days before it was supposed to drop, followed by a post that same night on Big Hit's Twitter page with a picture of the mixtape's cover art and a full track list. No other posts about it came until 2 days later, when Big Hit posted the official links to listen to the mixtape on streaming platforms and watch the Forever Rain music video on YouTube. And only a couple other things were released, such as reposted articles about Mono and the lyric videos for 2 of Mono's B-sides. That was pretty much it. Fast forward to 2022, RM did a live stream on Weverse on July 21st where, when talking about his upcoming album, he had this to say: "I think I'm going to go on a bit of a different path from J-Hope. While doing fun things, I think I'm going to go in my own character and kind of quiet. Anyway, I plan on getting involved a lot, so I want to show you great sides." So from both of these instances, you can see that RM is the type of person to prefer less extravagant promotion. But because RM hasn't dropped the name of his title track yet, people think that Big Hit is neglecting the promotion of his album, even though RM himself had cut things way closer in the past. This situation got even stickier with this account's follow-up tweet 2 hours later after receiving very swift backlash, when they said, "Never said that I disagreed with anything he said or that I didn't trust him. I just talked about not thinking that it was right that the promotion of his album was up to him. Okay, I see that y'all don't agree with me, don't need to tell me to K myself or treat me like a traitor." Before I pick apart this response, I want to preface this by saying that under no circumstances do I or should anyone condone threats of any kind, especially those that encourage self-harm. Although we can agree that death threats are wrong while also acknowledging that what this account said about Indigo is still a piss-poor take, and on top of that, this account has not acknowledged the loads of valid criticism that they received on their original tweet. But let's talk about the first part of this response. You'll notice that from the wording that despite the fact that they seemingly understand that this promotional style was RM's decision, they still don't think it should be left up to him. This naturally sparked even more outrage from ARMYs. A bit later, an ARMY shared a private message that they received from that same account, putting them on blast for wanting to resolve their public actions in private. Within this private message, the account attempts to elaborate what they meant in their response tweet. They said that they weren't trying to say that they didn't want RM to promote his own album, but that they think it's unfair that it was only left up to him, since, quote-unquote, "everything we know about Indigo comes solely from Namjoon. The company doesn't even post support." Not only is this victimizing, but this is also just factually incorrect. From the day RM announced his album on November 10th to the day this account tweeted on November 21st, both the general Big Hit Twitter page and the BTS exclusive Big Hit Twitter page had been taking turns tweeting information such as the actual album announcement, links to pre-order the physical album, and reposted articles about Indigo's release. And from November 24th, both of these accounts posted promotional tweets almost every day up to Indigo's release, like photo sketches, interview trailers, the album track list, and the music video teaser for the title track, amongst other things. And even after Indigo dropped, more promotional content was released by Big Hit, such as live shows, streaming parties, bonus music videos, and performances across multiple different platforms. In short, the problem wasn't that there was no promotion for Indigo. The real problem was that this person and others like them were too impatient. They believed that RM's promotional style wasn't good enough and projected that dislike onto RM himself, fabricating this lie that there was a disconnect between RM and Big Hit in terms of how Indigo's promotion was supposed to be handled, simply because they were afraid that this supposed lack of promotion would lead to poor metrics. I think these tweets sum up exactly what I'm thinking. The crazy part about all this discourse over promo is that it all boils down to some of y'all's obsession with numbers. You're not asking for promo for yourself. You know something is coming. You're asking because you fear the release not making the numbers you personally want it to make because of exposure. Y'all let stats that have nothing to do with the artistic vision impact how you personally consume and enjoy a release to the point of questioning their methods and denying their artistic autonomy because you're insecure about how the release may go because of lack of promo. And that's annoying. This really hit the nail on the head in my opinion, especially after hearing what Namjoon had to say about charting in general for his album. On December 5th, 2022, The first episode of Shuchita was posted to BTS's official YouTube channel Bangtan TV with RM as a guest. At some point during the episode, Suga asked RM if he felt pressured thinking about where Indigo might place on the charts, and he had this to say: "Chart performance is important, there's no denying that at all. BTS and RM are my everything, so even if I release an album, I don't think my name could ever get bigger than BTS. So for my music, I'm not indifferent to the charts, but I want it to be completely free. But if I say I don't care about rankings, that would be a lie. I do care, but since my purpose or goal isn't to top the charts, I wanted to do my best where I could. I really don't mind much about rankings." This was further solidified when, during RM's live performance of Indigo at Seoul Rolling Hall that same day, he said, "You all often say to me, do everything you want to do, Kim Namjoon. This time I really did everything I wanted to, not thinking about rankings in the US or Korea, things like that. Look at me now too, I'm doing what I want to. I'm doing a concert like this after nearly 10 years and I really wanted to do one." And before anyone says anything, don't get me wrong. RM saying that he doesn't really mind the rankings much doesn't mean I'm promoting a mentality where we don't chart his music. BTS has only been able to become this mainstream because ARMY's put in the work and supported them with all we had. What I am saying, however, is that regardless of how each member chooses to promote their project, we work with what we have and never demand that they do more. The charts are our concern, not BTS's, and we shouldn't be pressing them to drop more promotional content to satisfy our expectations. It's just not our place to do so. This is why I take issue with people who imply that Big Hit, and when they say Big Hit they really mean RM, isn't promoting enough for them, and so they're afraid that Indigo won't make the waves like they want it to, even going as far as to drag Jack in the Box back into this goofy discourse and claim that nobody outside the fandom even knows about it. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that BTS don't have to conform to standard promotional styles just so you can be less insecure about their chart rankings. If anything, what RM proved with his solo projects is that even with unorthodox or minimal promotion, he can still achieve amazing results. Remember Mono, aka the mixtape that ARMY's only had 2 days of notice for? That debuted at number 26 on the Billboard 200 in its first tracking week, despite the fact that it was a mid-week release and had 0 physical versions, surpassing Hope World by J-Hope to become the highest charting album by a Korean soloist on the Billboard 200. Not only that, but RM's mixtape became number 1 on iTunes in 86 different countries on its first tracking day, beating out the record of Love Yourself Tear, his own group's album, to take the title of the Korean album with the most number 1s on iTunes. As for Indigo, it debuted at number 15 in its first tracking week and then re-peaked at number 3 in its following week, making him the first and only member of BTS at that time to chart this high as a soloist on the Billboard 200. That's not an easy feat. It just goes to show you that there's no need to worry about how BTS's projects are being promoted. Solo stans and Diet Solo stans even prove this. After Indigo's re-peak at number 3, this account tweeted, "We were so scared about the lack of promotion Indigo was receiving, and now Jun's last archive of his 20s has been achieving so much. Sorry." First of all, that's RM to you. You don't get to call him Jun after what you put us through. And second of all, this tweet completely encapsulates everything I hate about the solo stan community. They constantly make problems out of nothing and then work themselves up to the point where they make terrible assumptions about what's going on with their favorite member. Assumptions that they then broadcast to their thousands of followers, making the weeks leading up to releases such a negative experience every single time without fail, only for BTS and ARMYs to continuously prove them wrong. It's so frustrating. One thing I was excited about when BTS announced they would be dropping these solo albums was not just the music, but just the different ways in which the members would promote it. We'd be able to see their individuality every step of the way, and I used to think about how fun it would be to compare and contrast each member's promotional run. But it's clear that because BTS aren't promoting their projects the exact same way, solo stans will never be happy, even though the whole point of Chapter 2 was to showcase BTS's individuality. What happened with Jack in the Box set a dangerous precedent for how each member's solo work should be received. Since its release, we've kept having solo stan issues with each member that has come out with new music. And if nothing is done, we'll likely continue having these problems all the way up until BTS reconvenes as a group in 2025. And I don't know about you, but that does not sound great to me. The second issue I have with solo stans is the infantilization of their favorite member. Just so we're all clear on the definition before I continue, to infantilize is to treat a person as a child in a way that denies their maturity in age or experience. Solo stans are notorious for treating their favorite member as a child who cannot speak up for themselves or make any decisions concerning themselves. They believe that their favorite member has no autonomy in their career. There are two things I dislike about this. One, believing your idol has no control over their career further perpetuates the stereotype that all K-pop idols have no freedom in their lives when we know that's not the case. And two, because of this belief that their idol has no control, it allows solo stans to take drastic measures on their favorite member's behalf. These drastic measures are always done without the consent of their favorite member, and also done without the confirmation that there's even an issue to be raised in the first place. One example I can think of is from March 9, 2021, when episode 132 of Run BTS, BTS's ongoing variety web show series, was posted onto Weverse. The premise behind this episode, and the episode that came before it, was a 77-minute debate where every 11 minutes, the members rotated between being a debater or a moderator and argued over various topics. The catch was that every round, the staff and the current moderator would have already picked out specific words and actions that debaters were forbidden to use during the debate, but the other members didn't know what they were, so every time one of them was used, they got sprayed with water cannons. This was too much for some J-Hope solo stans because that very same day of the episode release, a J-Hope fanbase tweeted this. In Run BTS episode 132, production staff set unsuitable game levels for the program effect, which is a huge pressure physically and mentally for J-Hope. Hope that put the safety of artists in the first place, and unreasonable game can be cancelled. Yes, you heard that correctly. They truly think that J-Hope was put in harm's way because he was sprayed with water. It's tweets like these that really baffle me because if J-Hope was really uncomfortable with getting sprayed with water, then as an adult with control of his successful career, he would have just not participated. For example, in episode 84 of Run BTS, when BTS was doing water activities, J-Hope did not participate in the obstacle course because he was feeling nauseous and took a rest. There was also a time in season 2, episode 6 of Bon Voyage, BTS's travel series, where, after their shark tour on the boat in Hawaii, J-Hope decided to not join BTS to go get food right after because he felt seasick, and he was later found resting. In short, these are both examples of J-Hope having the liberty to opt out of activities if he doesn't want to do them. Nobody forces him to keep going, and nobody shames him for not being present either. From this, we can infer two things. One, J-Hope has the ability to decline participating in an activity if he doesn't want to. And two, if he is participating, it's because he wants to and because he's comfortable doing it. So it makes no sense for this J-Hope fanbase to want games like this to get cancelled, because he's shown us before that if he's not comfortable with something, he can get up and leave. But the thing that really made this tweet age like expired milk in the hot Arizona sun was the fact that 6 months later, during Run BTS episode 151, when J-Hope was in a hotel room, he was watching that exact same two-parter that the J-Hope account complained about, saying, and I quote, "This is the funniest episode, in my opinion." I don't know about you, but if I was this J-Hope account, I would be incredibly embarrassed if the episodes I campaigned to get cancelled turned out to be my favorite members' episodes out of the entire series. This just goes to show you that not only do solo stans have a problem infantilizing their favorite member, but they also just don't know their favorite member as well as they think they do. And if they were this loud and wrong about one thing, imagine what else they're loud and wrong about. And this isn't the only time J-Hope solo stans have tried to campaign on behalf of J-Hope. Going back to the Jack in the Box incident, the biggest problem solo stans had with the album was that there was no physical CD, amongst other issues they had listed that have their own separate discussions that I just don't have time to get into in this video. But due to the problems they all had with how Jack in the Box was promoted, they decided to plan an event for the 20th and 21st of December 2022 to trend some demands on Twitter, tagging official accounts hoping that Big Hit would see their tweets and respond to them. The owner of this account was the main ringleader in all of this and was the one posting information about the event in question and the demands participants were supposed to tweet out once the event had started. Once ARMYs found out about this, the J-Hope account responsible for the posts was rightfully jumped. But of course, J-Hope solo stans weren't budging. For example, this one solo stan says, "Hypocrisy at its finest by OT6 International ARMYs," and the quote retweets and replies, harassing J-Hope fan accounts as always for coming at HYBE's throat and acting blind on their own hypocritical ass. Or this one solo stan who said, "Armpits mad about a hashtag directed to the company like they will get directly affected by it. Hybe are grown people, they can address or deal with the issues themselves, they don't need rat me's to speak for them. You company stans are weird." Firstly, I have already established in the first part of this video that J-Hope made the creative decision to make the album CD list to fit the vibe of his concept. This was not an executive decision by higher-ups at Hybe who exercised their authority over J-Hope to force him into taking the CD out of his album. So that means that this isn't a hashtag directed at the company. This is ultimately a hashtag directed towards J-Hope himself, because whether these solo stans want to admit it or not, J-Hope said out of his own mouth that he made the decision for this album to be CD-less. Also, going back to what the second solo stan tweeted, they said that Hybe are grown people and can therefore handle these issues themselves and don't need us to speak up for them. It is absolutely crazy how they can tweet something like this without realizing that we can use that exact same logic against them as to why they don't need to campaign for J-Hope. Because J-Hope is also a grown man that has been training and working within the K-pop industry since 2010. And if that's the case, why does J-Hope need solo stans to speak up for him? And this isn't even the craziest instance I've seen of solo stans trying to take action on behalf of their favorite member. On September 6, 2022, this account dedicated to BTS member V posted a thread detailing an official letter they sent to Hybe through a law firm. Within that letter, they listed out demands that they wanted Hybe to carry out to protect V from those that wanted to cause harm to him, even going on to suggest that fans have the right to claim compensation for the mental and material pain caused to both the artist and the fan. At the bottom of the thread, they also include a link to donate to the account's PayPal if anyone wants to help out. This thread garnered a lot of attention until it reached the timeline of this account known as the BTS Army Bar Association, which is an account run by actual lawyers that are fans of BTS. And what they had to say about this V-focused account was not good. I'll link the full thread in the description if you want to read it, but to summarize what they said about the whole situation: 1. You cannot file a lawsuit on behalf of someone else without that person's express consent. 2. You cannot receive compensation for actions taken against someone else. 3. Ordering an individual or their representative to take legal action in this way is unethical and, if there are any threats of any kind, can be considered blackmail. 4. Fans do not have rights to any information regarding legal action taken by V or his representatives. And 5. Big Hit already warned fans that it's difficult for them to assist or join third-party complaints. Let me expand a bit on the fifth point. On December 26, 2019, in a Weverse notice updating fans on legal proceedings against the violation of artist rights, they specify near the end of the notice, Big Hit's legal team is overseeing the legal proceedings against these malicious postings. For third-party complaints brought forth by fans or other individuals, please note that there is considerable difficulty in proceeding with such cases since third-party complaints require the artist to be summoned by the police as defendants to appear in person for questioning. Such appearances would be difficult to arrange due to the artist's schedules as well as other limiting factors. Thus, we must inform you that it is difficult for the company to provide assistance with or join such third-party complaints submitted by individuals or organizations. What Big Hit was not so subtly trying to tell us is that we should refrain from bringing forth third-party complaints because they are a great inconvenience to the artist. When you file a third-party complaint, the artist would need to be summoned by police and stay for questioning. And with how busy BTS can sometimes be every waking second of the day, asking them to interrupt their already packed schedules to sit down in a police station for God knows how long is just not feasible. And even if they weren't busy, why should they have to constantly drop everything they're doing to be questioned by police every time a fan files a complaint? Big Hit already goes out of their way to file legal complaints as BTS's representatives and gives us periodic updates whenever they've made progress. They even gave us an official email to send things if we have any cases of malicious comments that we need to report. Is this not a better alternative that not only guarantees that Big Hit is able to have a collection of evidence in one place, but as BTS's representatives, they don't need to call BTS out of their houses every time they need to file a complaint to the police? On top of that, this V-focused account is taking donations to cover fees, but as BTS Army Bar Association pointed out, you shouldn't give people money for a lawsuit unless you can verify that there's an active lawsuit with the victim's permission and involvement, there is some form of the proof of the cost of the lawsuit, such as a legal invoice, and that there is evidence of the victim's financial status such that you are satisfied that they actually need help paying their legal bills. And this V-focused account has provided none of that. So you can imagine how many people must have donated to this person's PayPal without receiving verification that the money they're sending is even going towards what it's supposed to go toward. All in all, you can see that solo stans will take all sorts of measures to supposedly protect their favorite member. And I haven't even touched on other extreme cases, such as solo stans sending trucks with TV screens to Hybe's building that broadcast their demands for everyone to see. That's something you can research on your own. But all of this is just to show how far solo stans take things, even if it means literally embarrassing their favorite member at their place of work. The third issue I have with solo stans is the support that they give to sasaengs and fan sites. Let's start by defining these terms first. The word sasaeng derives from the Korean word sasaenghwal, meaning private life. Sasaengs are known as over-obsessive fans that go out of their way to stalk their favorite celebrities for attention, and sometimes even go out of their way to harm them. As for fan sites are fans who take photos and videos of idols using professional-grade cameras. My issue with sasaengs is fairly obvious. Stalking is clearly a violation of both the official Big Hit fan etiquette and the actual law. Going out of your way to invade anybody's privacy and put them in harm's way is unethical no matter how you look at it. Stalking celebrities is something that unfortunately is pretty common in all parts of the world. But in South Korea, I just feel like it's more intense. There might be a couple reasons for that. First off, the sasaeng community is pretty organized. It's said that sasaengs are able to obtain private information of celebrities by working in places like phone companies and airports, which they can either use for themselves to stalk and call their favorite celebrities, or they can sell that information to others for more money. And it's these jobs, along with the selling of private information, that funds all the trips they take to stalk their favorite celebrities around the world. As to why they stalk their favorite celebrities, at the end of the day, it's all to get noticed. The bottom line is that they want attention from the celebrities they stalk, and so will try to get close to them through any means necessary, even if it means endangering the safety of others. This is what makes them especially dangerous because they don't actually care whether the attention they get from their favorite celebrities is positive or negative. The fact that they've been given any attention at all is what eggs them on. And this is not me putting any blame on celebrities who do react because they're well within their right to do so. It's just a shame that stalking hadn't been taken as seriously in South Korea for the longest time, despite the horror stories that some idols have shared about their own experience with sasaengs. This also brings me to my second reason as to why the sasaeng community is so intense in South Korea. Up until 2021, stalking was barely considered an actual crime in South Korea. It was previously classified in the criminal code as misdemeanor, which would only land you a 100,000 won fine at most, which is less than the cost of a speeding ticket in Washington, D.C. But now, effective from October 1st, 2021, the new anti-stalking law makes it so that perpetrators can face up to 3 years in prison. This is the first time such a law has ever been put into place, so imagine all the K-pop idols and other celebrities in South Korea that have had to deal with sasaengs for decades without the perpetrators having any way to be punished outside a slap on the wrist. Like I said, stalking is against the official Big Hit fan etiquette, but because of how lax the laws were around stalking, it could only be taken as more of a firm suggestion. Because sasaengs who were caught never really faced proper consequences and were more than willing to pay a measly fine however many times they needed to, as long as they could keep stalking their favorite idol. But now that this law has been put into place, I guarantee the next updates Big Hit give us on legal proceedings will include updates relating to stalking as well. An example I can give in regard to stalking has to do with Jin's enlistment. As some of you may know, Jin officially enlisted in the South Korean military on the 13th of December 2022 to fulfill his mandatory service of 18 months. A few weeks before his enlistment, however, the location of the military site he would be training at was leaked to the public and spread around on social media. It was so widespread that eventually Jin himself found out and took to Weverse on the 23rd of November 2022 to say this: "There are articles released that I didn't want, but please don't come to the training center, Army. There will be many people besides me, so it can be dangerous because it's crowded. Army, I love you." This was followed up by Big Hit making an official Weverse statement on December 5th, 2022, telling people not to visit the military site for his entrance ceremony. As a result, Jin's entrance ceremony was an event that was only attended by his family members and the other members of BTS. I will come back to this point in a moment, so please hold on to it. After Jin officially enlisted, suddenly there was a rise in accounts giving updates on Jin in the military. People were naturally weirded out because nobody was sure how exactly people were figuring out what Jin was doing on a daily basis and spreading pictures that were not posted by any of BTS's or Big Hit's official accounts. So a lot of questions were asked. Something that continuously came up when asking about where certain information came from was this website called The Camp, which is apparently dedicated to giving updates about those enlisted, mainly for family, close friends, etc. So because this website was public, Jin solo stans were saying it's okay to use since, according to them, it was public information, and therefore there should be no problem posting updates from that site. But there's a catch. Remember how I said that the location of Jin's base was leaked and that Jin had made a post on Weverse talking about how he never wanted that information released? Well, one army decided to take one for the team and try to make an account on the camp website to see how easy it is to get updates on specific people. And lo and behold, in order to get updates about Jin, you have to know where he's enlisted. That means despite Jin voicing his upset at the leaked information, solo stans still went behind his back and used that information to access his updates on the camp website. And that's not all. Not only were solo stans using the details of his base's address to access the website, but they were also using it to send letters to his base. Their logic being that Jin can't update us himself since he allegedly was not allowed to use his cell phone, which meant social media updates from him were completely off the table. It also meant that the only way for Jin to see support from fans is if they send physical letters. But then on January 4th, 2023, Big Hit posted another Weverse statement, asking fans not to send any mail at all for the duration of his enlistment, as it would be difficult to store things such as letters and gifts and that they could easily be lost. They also asked fans not to show up for his training graduation ceremony either. An alternative they did provide, however, was for armies to send Jin supportive messages on Weverse using the hashtag #DearJinFromArmy, stating, "Big Hit Music will assist in making sure Jin is able to personally see any kind and warm messages fans leave on Weverse. This means that Jin will be given opportunities while enlisted to read Weverse messages from armies." On top of that, since Jin started his service, multiple BTS members on multiple different occasions would tell us whenever Jin had talked to them and update us on how he is. If that wasn't enough, since his initial training period finished, Jin himself comes online every so often to post pictures, reply to posts from other BTS members, or comment on their live streams. And if even that wasn't enough, he went out to dinner with the members when he was on a short leave once, he took time off to attend J-Hope's military entrance ceremony, and he and J-Hope even attended Suga's final concert on his D-Day tour in Seoul. This goes against every solo stan and Diet Solo Stan account claiming that Jin wouldn't have access to a cell phone. If he's able to call the BTS members, text them either individually or in their group chat, and even post pictures to Weverse and Instagram, then obviously he is not as restricted as solo stans said he was. And if that's the case, they have absolutely no way to justify using websites such as The Camp for Jin updates, since we're able to get updates from the other BTS members and also Jin himself. There are multiple takeaways from this whole fiasco in my opinion. The first is that not all information that is official and confirmed is good, because if the media wasn't afraid to leak his base's location, how can we be sure that anything not coming from BTS or Big Hit has been released with Jin's consent? The second is that good things come to those who wait. I never participated in digging around the web for things like what Jin's daily schedule is or what he's eating every day. I just didn't trust that any of this information was released consensually, and so I chose to wait for updates from the members instead. So when BTS did actually update us on how he's doing, and then we got those pictures and other posts from Jin, it felt so much more rewarding, and I felt so much better knowing that these updates were consensual and that I didn't have to use underhanded, convoluted methods to get them. And the third is that there are some people who truly have unhealthy coping mechanisms. I miss Jin just as much as the next army, and I'm practically counting down the days until he comes back. But there are plenty of ways I can channel that energy into something more productive. Instead of resorting to borderline sasaeng methods of getting crumbs of information about Jin from a government website, I could stream Jin's music, I could watch his show appearances, or I could send him a message on Weverse that I know he would actually be able to see. We didn't know what Jin was doing every single day before he enlisted, so I don't see a reason to now. And if that's information that you need to know in order to feel emotionally stable, then that's not healthy, and I would suggest you wean yourself off being so dependent on such updates that you'd willingly override Jin's consent to get them. As for fan sites, my problems with them are similar but also not entirely the same. While I wouldn't say that every fan site is a sasaeng, there are plenty of sasaengs that are also fan sites, taking pictures and videos of BTS in places that are either not permitted or were never disclosed to the public. One of these incidents happened in late 2022, back when V went on an unannounced trip to Paris. Nobody knew about where he went or for how long, and yet videos circulated online of V being recorded in the airports. One fansite account that had gotten some pictures of him during this time and was rightfully called out for it, ended up making a statement under their post saying, "For those who suspected me of being a sasaeng or stalker, I'd like to clarify that I asked a friend in Paris to assist me in photographing this French boarding after I knew Taeyang's arrival time in Korea. My fansite is run by 2 people so we can shoot trips in Korea and overseas. If there are similar doubts in the future, I will not explain again, and I will not let my friend take pictures anymore about Taeyang's future trip in France." Keep in mind that I just said that V's trip to Paris was not announced to the public, so there's no way that anyone should have known about it. Which begs the question, if no one was supposed to know about it, then how did this fansite know V's arrival time in Korea? They must have gotten this information from somewhere, right? Well, the answer is obvious. They either bought the information off of sasaeng, or they are the sasaeng who acquired V's flight details through illegal/unethical means. There's just no dancing around this fact. And yet, this post with V's airport pictures got so much engagement, even though this goes directly against all the rules. And some common arguments I've seen for why fansites like this shouldn't be called out for stalking V are things like, "He was smiling," or "He waved at us." And because of that, it should somehow make stalking him okay. But at the end of the day, it doesn't. It's still against the official Big Hit fan etiquette, and it's still against the law. No amount of smiling and waving on V's part will change that. And oftentimes when they're at the airport, BTS have to maintain politeness in front of reporters and journalists, otherwise they risk getting bad publicity. Just look at how V was reported on the one time he decided to not greet any of the cameras on his way out of the airport after coming back from Paris Fashion Week in late 2022. He's even taken more direct approaches in the past, like in 2018 when fansites and sasaengs wouldn't let him walk through the airport in peace, so he turned to the nearest one and shoved his phone in their face to give them a taste of their own medicine. And he ended up getting bashed for this too. This leads to them having to be more polite when telling people off, otherwise they are painted by the media as the bad guy. An example of this is a Weverse livestream Jungkook did on March 3rd, 2023, where he said, "I'm really thankful that you guys pay attention to me, but when I'm working out, please don't come looking for me. I got shocked the last time. Other armies could look for me, but they don't do it, you know? There's this line of privacy for each other. I'm just a person and armies are just people too, but let's not do stuff like this." So, as you can see, their image is constantly in danger of getting dragged through the mud whenever they decide to not play into what journalists and so-called fans want them to do. And that's not fair to BTS or any celebrity in general. And my critiques of fansites don't end there either. Some people could watch this section of the video and still claim that fansites are still largely unproblematic because most of them don't look up private information, but that doesn't mean that they don't break the rules. Fan etiquette regarding airport rules aside, there are plenty of fansites that go out of their way to ignore Big Hit's rules regarding camera policies. For the longest time, whenever BTS go on tour, the general rule is that you are not allowed to bring professional cameras into the venue. The only thing you're allowed to bring aside from your phone are non-professional still cameras for personal use and the point-and-shoot cameras without detachable lenses. But even with these rules so clearly laid out, fansites will still find a way to sneak their camera equipment in and take photos. On April 17th, 2022, during BTS's PTD concert run in Vegas, one account tweeted, "Person standing right next to me was just kicked out of the BTS concert for taking photos with a professional camera. Like, 5 security guards came up and they did not mess around. Pretty wild." Not only does this show that fansites were breaking the rules, but it shows that Big Hit takes the camera policy very seriously. There is no reason why fansites should be smuggling camera equipment into the concert. It poses a possible threat to concert goers because the camera equipment could be mistaken for a weapon and cause panic in the crowd. And also, we already get so many HD photos of BTS concerts these days from Big Hit themselves that fansites have become pretty obsolete. Especially considering that up until BTS's first PTD concert run in Los Angeles back in November of 2021, we had gone 2 years without relying on fansite photos from concerts during the pandemic, and the fandom was just fine without them. We've already proved that armies don't need them to survive, so anyone trying to convince you that fansites are an absolute necessity are completely delusional. Besides, why give support to fan sites who already have a bad reputation of being rude during concerts while making profit off taking BTS's pictures on top of that, when you can get the same high quality pictures from BTS's Weverse community that have been ethically taken for no extra charge at all? Just some food for thought. From all the screenshots I've shown you of solo stans, you'll start to notice a pattern with all of them. They all hate Big Hit Music and its parent company HYBE and constantly express their animosity towards the Big Hit founder and current chairman of HYBE, Bang Si-hyuk, aka Bang PD. They also express their animosity towards the staff who work for him and also BTS's decision to sign to the Big Hit label. The reason why is simple. For solo stans, Big Hit and HYBE are the source of all their problems. They're the companies who supposedly mistreat their favorite member and never give them the opportunity to shine. Regardless of how transparent Big Hit and HYBE is with how they operate and how they treat the members, regardless of the praise they get from insiders in the industry, Big Hit and HYBE are irredeemable in solo stans' eyes. Nothing they ever do is worth merit unless it's to the benefit of their favorite member, and even then, solo stans treat it as the bare minimum and move on. Anyone in the fandom who praises or defends Big Hit and HYBE is up for scrutiny by solo stans as well. It's not uncommon for solo stans to call ARMYs company stans, claiming that we support the vision of the company more than we support the actual members, and that we would not hesitate to throw BTS under the bus in the defense of Big Hit and HYBE. Even though I normally don't have a problem with how BTS's label runs things, I don't believe that Big Hit or HYBE are above criticism, something that most if not all ARMYs would agree with. I've had no problems with publicly talking about anything Big Hit or HYBE has done that I didn't agree with. But since they don't evidently make such egregious mistakes with their artist management like other music companies do, I never really have much to say in regards to how they can do better. And it's because of this that solo stans have a problem with ARMYs. Since they believe their artist is always being mistreated, for ARMYs to have no serious issues with the company is infuriating to them. The message they take away from our lack of outrage is that we don't care about their favorite member being mistreated. But again, the mistreatment they fight against are things that BTS have never complained about. The reason why most ARMYs don't spend their days harassing Big Hit and HYBE over unfounded claims is because of how much BTS has shown that they have control over their career. For example, when HYBE, which was formerly known as Big Hit until they separated the year after, went public in October of 2020, Bang PD gifted 68,385 HYBE common shares to each member of BTS worth over $7 million US. By making the members shareholders of HYBE, that means they actually own a portion of their company right now. And according to an article on Investopedia titled Know Your Shareholder Rights, being a common shareholder gives you voting power on major issues, right to transfer ownership of your stock, entitlement to dividends, opportunities to inspect corporate books and records, and even the right to sue for wrongful acts. The last right is especially important within the context of this video because by Bang PD gifting these shares to BTS, he also gave them the right to file a shareholder lawsuit against their label should BTS feel wronged in any way. So the fact that BTS has this right and has not used it should give you a clue as to just how much they are being mistreated. This is why BTS felt comfortable enough to renew their contract for an extra 7 years. They trusted that Big Hit would continue to support them the way they wanted and that their new contracts had everything they were looking for. And this issue also comes with the problem of people seeing Big Hit and HYBE as a monolith and not as companies with hundreds of employees at every level. It's not just Bang PD pulling all the strings behind the scenes. Big Hit and HYBE's teams are also full of makeup artists, stylists, choreographers, in-house producers, creative directors, data analysts, managers, and more, some of which have been with BTS from the very beginning, which means they also had their own come-up story alongside them. BTS have always had such great things to say about their staff, even going as far as to dedicate songs to them like For Youth. They also have a great relationship with Bang PD that has become so close that they even refer to him with the Hyung honorific, which is a huge deal given South Korea's intricate respect culture. So it always baffles me whenever solo stans try to make it seem like every employee on every level hates their favorite member in particular and wants to see them fail, when pretty much every interaction BTS has with their staff and with Bang PD is always so wholesome. The reason why ARMYs trust BTS's label is because BTS trust their label, and we trust BTS. If BTS ever vocalizes that they ever have a serious issue with how they're being managed, then best believe all bets are off. So if BTS are satisfied with their label, then who are we to protest in their place? It's bad enough that solo stans treat their favorite members like children and treat Big Hit and Hybe as the devil reincarnate, but they also do not like ARMYs either. The reason why they don't like ARMYs is because ARMYs put their trust in the boys and their label to make decisions regarding the group's management and promotion, and as we've discussed, Big Hit and Hybe are solo stans' mortal enemy. So naturally, they believe we've been brainwashed into accepting the mistreatment of BTS, while solo stans are apparently the only ones who know the truth. They're not mindless sheep like us ARMYs are. They've ascended past our ways of primitive thinking. That was sarcasm, by the way. Because solo stans don't trust any community but their own, they're very skeptical of ARMYs and have this idea that none of us truly love all the members, but especially their favorite member. Every solo stan for every member of BTS has the exact same belief that ARMYs do not appreciate their favorite member enough. If you take the sentence, ARMYs don't appreciate blank enough, solo stans will put any member's name in there and then spread that lie to other solo stans to increase the tension between our communities. It's gone to a point where any ARMY that disagrees with the solo stan is deemed an anti of these solo stans' favorite member. It's a common tactic used by solo stans to manipulate ARMYs into believing that they don't actually love BTS. Solo stans have this holier-than-thou mentality. In their eyes, their community has the most morals and could never do anything wrong. Every action they take is towards a righteous cause, which is wanting better treatment for their favorite member, according to them. So if an ARMY disagrees with them, it means that ARMY's beliefs are not as righteous as their beliefs, and by extension, don't care about a specific member, making that ARMY OT6. And this isn't to say that ARMYs are always perfect themselves. There are plenty of incidents where an ARMY might say something ignorant or disrespectful, and we as a fandom have to go in and educate them. Even I have been in such positions where I've accidentally crossed a line and needed to be corrected. But my issue with solo stans is that they'll put a target on these ARMYs' backs and continue to harass them even after that ARMY has been educated and changed for the better. It doesn't matter if you've genuinely apologized, and it doesn't matter if you've never made that same mistake again. If you cross solo stans once, you strike out for life. And when it comes to the threshold that solo stans have to judge whether or not someone is an anti of their favorite member, it is very low. I've seen ARMYs get attacked for things that you wouldn't even believe if I showed you. Like the time an ARMY decided to make a thread comparing the color scheme of Jungkook's hair and outfits to the color scheme of Nike sneakers, and they got spammed with so much hate and accusations they had to tweet an apology and clarification. Or like the time J-Hope solo stans tried to cancel an ARMY because they couldn't be bothered to type out the hyphen in J-Hope's stage name, even though there are posts from BTS's official Twitter where J-Hope himself doesn't type out the hyphen in his stage name. A while back, I was called a Jin anti simply because I said that if Jin ever wanted to act, it's ultimately his choice and we should just listen to him because it's his life. So you can see the type of petty reasons solo stans will use to try and cancel just about anybody on Twitter. If they can't find damning enough evidence, then they'll take any regular tweet of yours, twist it to fit their narrative, and send their solo stan friends after you with the ultimate goal to get you to either grovel and beg for their forgiveness or deactivate. Now to move on to my final issue I have with solo stans, which is the way that they constantly ignore everything BTS and Big Hit say in order for their narratives to be effective. There are many instances I can think of where solo stans blame the company or other people for decisions revealed to be made by the members. They would sooner ignore the words of their own favorite member than admit they aren't the puppets solo stans make them out to be. As a result, they believe a plethora of false information that can very easily be debunked if you just listen to what BTS and their label have said out of their own mouths. You could literally show the evidence to solo stans and they'll still tell you that they don't have to believe or follow what their favorite member says. They're just too far gone to listen to reason anymore. I hate to beat a dead horse, but to refer back to the Jack in the Box incident, a documentary on the album making process as well as the Lollapalooza performance of it was released on Disney Plus in Weverse on the 17th of February 2023 called J-Hope in the Box. In the ending credits of the documentary, J-Hope said in an interview, "When my album had just been released, many things worried me. Shouldn't there be more promotion efforts? Why aren't you dancing? That kind of feedback did bother me. So I was quite anxious. But now that I look back, the fans seem to love it and the project seems to have been a success." ARMYs immediately pointed out what he said and referred back to all the times J-Hope solo stans complained about lack of promotion. They said that because of their constant complaining and unreasonable demands, they directly contributed to J-Hope's worries and concerns, which ended up being confirmed in the Shuchita episode and in the thanks to message that I mentioned earlier in the video. And in typical solo stan fashion, they tried to claim that we were spreading misinformation. Misinformation, even though J-Hope was the one who said these words. Their reasoning for why it was misinformation was that the Weaver's translation translated what he said differently. So let's read the Weaver's translation, shall we? The Weaver's translation of that same excerpt says, "I had so many worries when the album first released. Why aren't there that many promotions? Why aren't you dancing? But it's understandable to hear this kind of feedback. I think I had a lot of worries in regards to that. But after some time passed, the fans liked it as well. I seem to be ending it well." As you can see, both of these translations pretty much say the same thing. But solo stans tried to pass off the Weaver's translation as J-Hope's own worries simply because the Weaver's translation didn't include quotation marks around the questions. However, they ignored the other half of his sentence where he said, "But it's understandable to hear this kind of feedback," indicating that the aforementioned questions were feedback he received and not J-Hope's own personal concerns. No matter which translation you use, both of them say that when Jack in the Box was first released, J-Hope got feedback concerning the lack of promotion as well as a lack of choreography that he was typically known for. Due to this feedback, he had worries that this album wouldn't be well received, but the fans liked it, so he considered Jack in the Box a success. However, solo stans called what he said misinformation and harassed ARMYs into deleting their posts about it, spreading their own version of what they thought he was talking about. Luckily, many ARMYs weren't budging and refused to let them take control of the narrative so easily. Solo stans tried to silence them by saying that they were just trying to enjoy J-Hope's birthday in peace. Yes, all of this went down on J-Hope's birthday. But like these ARMYs have said, solo stans were the ones broadcasting their complaints for everyone to see since before Jack in the Box was even released. It's only now that ARMYs want to hold solo stans accountable for the stress they gave J-Hope that they start vying for sympathy and claiming how they just quote-unquote want things to be over. Since July of 2022, J-Hope solo stans have done nothing but be loud about their problems and drag these issues out for months on end. There has never been a point in time where they wanted to end things quickly and quietly. Another thing solo stans tried to backtrack on is claiming that they never said anything about having an issue with Jack in the Box promotion, and that their only issues were with the formatting of the physical album. But if you go back to older tweets, you'll see that this is also untrue. So many of them did talk about how they were disappointed in the fact that there was supposedly no promotional activities and no choreography for the title track. But they just don't want to accept that their complaints made J-Hope worry. They don't want to accept that they can have a negative impact on their favorite member. This is why, despite the fact that J-Hope's solo stans have been consistently caught out in their lies, they won't ever truly apologize, nor would I be surprised if they didn't. This is simply just how solo stans operate. Instead of admitting to ARMYs that they were wrong, they'd sooner just find any way to deflect blame and keep doing what they're doing. They'll constantly go out of their way to not listen to BTS when they show appreciation to their fans, their staff, and each other, calling BTS liars or confused whenever it suits them, but in the next breath will swear up and down that nobody supports their favorite member, as if these aren't the same people who would turn on that member if he said anything that proves them wrong. The lack of self-awareness / willful ignorance solo stans have is absolutely astounding. So, if solo stans don't listen to Big Hit, they don't listen to ARMYs, and they don't listen to BTS themselves, then what's their endgame? We've discussed what solo stans are and the type of things they do, but we haven't discussed why solo stans do these things. Why latch onto a specific member in a group and believe they've been mistreated for their whole career? Why believe that their company has been out to get them since day one? Why go against ARMYs and even your favorite member to crusade in the name of justice? Before I start, I want to give another disclaimer that everything I list from here on out is simply speculation based on observation. BTS solo stans are tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands in number, so there won't be a one-size-fits-all explanation for why all of them are solo stans. With that being said, let's get into my tinfoil hat theories. The first reason why I think people are solo stans could be because they were previously, or still are, a fan of other groups. And due to the way that some K-pop companies mismanage their idols, perhaps that malice towards those specific companies transferred over. That could explain why solo stans hate Big Hit so much and don't trust their words, even though they've shown proof that, while not perfect, they genuinely care about the well-being and success of their artists. Or it could be that because they're from other fandoms, maybe they only like one particular member of BTS but would rather die than become an ARMY or follow BTS as a group on social media. So, as a compromise, they just join the solo stan community where they know they'll only be getting updates on the member they like, and they can be free to hate on the other members and attack ARMYs unprovoked. A second reason I can think of is that some solo stans are just naive people who got tricked into believing that a specific member is being mistreated. Despite their narratives being easy to debunk, there are so many solo stans for different members of BTS. Why? Well, my best bet is that it's because a lot of people who got into BTS are new to K-pop in general, and so they're unfamiliar with the concept of solo stans. Therefore, they can't differentiate between solo stan narratives and the actual truth. That's how solo stans dupe newer fans into believing the lies they tell and suck them into the solo stan community. The third reason I have for you is that maybe solo stans do this to feel like a hero. Liking a specific member's music and/or personality, I feel, is only part of the solo stan experience. The other part is campaigning for your favorite member to be treated better. Sending email templates, making threads that victimize members of BTS, these are all ways in which solo stans feed their white knight complex. They want to save somebody and feel special for doing it. They want to be known as the ones who knew what was going on all along and fought for their favorite member to be noticed. A lot of people, in response to seeing the shenanigans of solo stans, tend to respond with, well, if you're only going to stan one member, why not just become a fan of actual soloists in the K-music industry? But in my opinion, it was never just about the music for solo stans. It's also about the validation they get from standing someone who they've deemed to be underappreciated in a group. Korean soloists don't have to fight for their place because, well, they're soloists. They don't have to share lines or screen time with anybody else. So by standing soloists, solo stans would have nothing to crusade for. Alternatively, a fourth reason solo stans could do what they do could possibly be for status. I've seen solo stans pick who they believe is the most popular member and lord it over ARMY's heads. And if we disagree with the way they operate, then it's because apparently we're jealous of how popular their favorite member is to the point where we don't want to see them succeed. The fifth reason why I think solo stans do what they do is actually from a theory an ARMY came up with online. Basically, the theory is that solo stans live vicariously through their favorite member because they latch onto people with personality traits they're lacking in. This could perhaps explain why solo stans tend to be the opposite of the person they're a fan of. Where a member is kind, their solo stans are rude. Where a member is friendly, their solo stans are antisocial. Where a member forgives, their solo stans hold pointless grudges. You probably get my point by now. The final and probably the saddest reason why I think solo stans could do what they do is that some solo stans maybe just have unchecked issues. Maybe there are solo stans who lead lives offline that are not so great, and they're not really in control of their circumstances. So they project their anger and insecurities onto their favorite idol in order to feel in control of somebody's life, even if that life is not their own. I remember coming across a thread once talking about how the language that solo stans use is akin to language used in abusive relationships. And when I sat down to think about it, they were right. I looked up signs of abuse online just to see how much of this statement was true, and the behavior of solo stans does indeed match up with a lot of characteristics of emotional abuse. Solo stans constantly attempt to put it in their favorite members' heads that they're the only ones who love them and appreciate them, and that no one but solo stans understand their true value. They use this narrative to justify speaking for/over their favorite member because they assert that they're the only ones who know what's best for them despite never meeting Big Hit staff, never reading BTS's contracts, and never meeting BTS themselves. Another thing to keep in mind is that abusive behavior is learned behavior. So chances are, these solo stans that display abusive tendencies have most likely had an upbringing where they've either witnessed or been a victim of abuse and are now displaying that type of behavior with their favorite member, whether they're aware of it or not. Then, solo stans find communities on social platforms where they congregate in swarms and validate each other's problematic tendencies. Twitter is the ideal place for solo stans to set up camp, as the very formatting of it is like playing an arduous game of telephone. This is how narratives are allowed to spread online without knowing where certain information came from or if said information is even correct. And the growth of these communities is what leads to problems that have real-life consequences on both the members and the outside perception of the fandom, such as the truck incidents or the harassment of innocent ARMYs online. Like the thread says, it's sabotaging the members' professional relationships with other people, and that type of thing can damage BTS's career. So far, I hope this video has opened your eyes as to how dangerous solo stans can be, but I thought it would be useful if I gave you some tips on how to identify them. When it comes to identifying solo stans, there are 4 things I would suggest you look out for. The first thing I would suggest you look out for is their account layout. The thing about solo stans is that they are usually pretty overt with how they identify. They don't try to hide the fact that they are solo stans, so for most situations, their social media layout and bio will give it away. Aside from obviously having a profile picture and username directly related to their favorite member, their bio will often tell you what member the account is dedicated to. It's not uncommon for them to directly state in their bios that they're solo stans either, so that's something else you should keep in mind. However, these days there have been more and more solo stans attempting to cosplay as armies to gain sizable platforms before showing their true colors, so I would also suggest that you keep that in mind as well and continue to be critical of the accounts you see on your timelines. The second thing to look out for is their following list. On social media, not only can you see who follows certain accounts, but you can also see who those accounts are following. So if you suspected somebody of being a solo stan and you still can't be 100% sure just from looking at their page layout, then you should also check who they're following. Solo stans only care about the member that they claim to stan, so all the accounts they follow will be related to their favorite member too. An example of accounts you might see in their following list are member-focused news and chart accounts, member-focused translation accounts, and even member-focused picture accounts. You will never see them following accounts that are dedicated to or are inclusive of other members of BTS. It would also do you good to check these accounts' likes and retweets. A lot of solo stans swear they don't disrespect the other members, but will constantly like and share posts by accounts that are openly shady towards the other members of BTS. The third thing to look out for is their attitude towards BTS, Big Hit and HYBE, and ARMYs. Does the account in question constantly push a narrative that a particular member is unhappy within the group or that the other members dislike him and or are jealous of him? Do they believe the other members are holding him back and that he'd be better off going solo? Do they believe that a particular member is consistently being mistreated by Big Hit / HYBE in comparison to the other members and therefore resent the label as a result? Do they claim that ARMYs show a bias against a particular member? If the answer to these questions is yes, then you are dealing with a solo stan. And if they're not a solo stan yet, they're definitely on their way to becoming one. The last thing to look out for is overall demeanor and tweet patterns. A key thing to note about solo stans is that they're never happy. All they do is constantly spread negativity and make social media a living hell, whether it's victimizing and infantilizing their favorite member, attacking ARMYs over non-issues, or sending hate towards BTS staff and anyone who's worked with them, like other music artists and outside producers. For solo stans, it's like there's always something wrong. Something else they like doing is trending hashtags and keywords when they want to spread awareness on something that they've deemed an issue. If you've ever been on the Twitter trending page and saw something trending like respect insert BTS member here or free insert BTS member here, they're pretty much always started by solo stans. And something also commonly done by solo stans is extreme public demonstrations such as sending a truck to the HYBE company building. Solo stans love to do these things because it gets them attention from media outlets, who will then report about it, which will give BTS's label bad publicity, which is what solo stans want at the end of the day. Also, if on top of this they support sasaengs and fansites, that's another red flag for reasons I've already mentioned. I also have to mention that in isolation, supporting sasaengs and fansites does not mean that someone is a solo stan, but there are a lot of solo stans who do support them, so it's just another thing to look out for. Although even if they weren't a solo stan, anyone supporting such things is bad in my books. And another thing, in terms of demeanor and tweet patterns, something you will often see is that solo stans tend to have a very performative way of measuring how much you stan somebody that revolves around your activity on social media. What I mean by this is that they'll do stuff like look up your account name in the Twitter search engine along with specific keywords that relate to their favorite member. And if no results come up, they'll use it to say, "See? How can you say you support my favorite member if you don't tweet about him?" I hate this method for 3 reasons. The first reason is that this method isn't even a reliable way to check if somebody's tweeted about something. There are plenty of ways to tweet about a BTS member without actually typing their names out or other things like names of specific songs. For example, I could tweet the sentence, "I love Yoongi," and that would show up in a Twitter search engine if I looked up my tweets using Yoongi as a keyword. But if I tweet a picture of Yoongi with the caption, "I love him," that's not going to show up in the search results if you search up my tweets using that same keyword. Not to mention that this method doesn't even take likes and retweets into consideration, that will obviously not show up if someone looks up your tweets either, because the tweets that you're liking and sharing to your page are from other accounts. The second reason why I hate this method is that it also doesn't take into consideration people who are less active on social media. Just because someone has an account on Twitter, it doesn't mean that they're using it 24/7. Some people only come on Twitter every once in a while, and sometimes even less so. But because they don't have enough tweets about a certain member for your liking, it means that they're an anti? There are so many people busy with things like school or work or kids, or maybe they just have other hobbies outside of Twitter. Most people don't have time to be active on Twitter using specific keywords and trending specific hashtags every second of the day, and those who expect them to have such a chronically online mindset. The third reason why I hate this method is simply because it's used to police people in the fandom and tell them how to tweet on their own page. At the end of the day, not every account on ARMY Twitter is a professional fan base. Some people are here to connect with other fans, some people are here to share their artwork, and some people only made a Twitter account to keep up with BTS-related news. ARMY should not feel obligated to tweet in specific ways to prove that they support the members. You're not going to find me going out of my way to tweet hashtags just for the sake of it, but you will find BTS at the top of my Spotify Wrapped leaderboard. At the end of the day, it's not the hashtags or the keywords you trend that will make a tangible impact, it's supporting the music. So when people unironically use this tweet searching method to deduce whether someone supports a particular member of BTS or not, it just frustrates me so much because it literally doesn't even work. I've talked about my issues with solo stans, why they do what they do, and how to identify them, but I wouldn't consider this video complete if I didn't give you some advice. Not just about how to avoid becoming a solo stan, but how to avoid enabling them and giving them a platform. Tip number 1. Avoid following member-related topics. This is more of a Twitter-specific piece of advice, but it's still important for me to say this because Twitter is the social media platform that probably has the most concentrated number of armies on it. On Twitter, you are able to follow certain topics, which allows you to see tweets related to that topic on your timeline. The way this works is through the algorithm categorizing tweets based on specific keywords that may pertain to the topic in question. And while this may be a useful tool to get quick news on things like gaming or fashion, solo stans tend to utilize the topic feature by using specific keywords to trend solo stan rhetoric under topics related to their favorite member. So if any of you are following certain member topics like Suga or RM, you should go and unfollow those topics. I'd even recommend unfollowing the general BTS topic, just to be extra safe. Instead of relying on the algorithm to recommend you tweets under a topic, it would be better for you to carefully curate your space by individually selecting each ARMY account you follow on here, so that you know that the only tweets showing up on your timeline are from people that you know for a fact aren't solo stans, diet solo stans, or any other type of undesirable. Tip number 2. Take everything on your feed with a grain of salt. Form a habit of fact-checking when it comes to information about BTS, Big Hit/HYBE, or ARMYs. If someone tells you something, your first instinct should be to ask for receipts. Never take someone's word as fact unless you know 100% that it happened. Another thing you should do if you end up getting receipts is making sure that they're receipts with full context. Something that solo stans always do is take tweets out of context and twist them to suit their narrative. So always make sure that if someone sends you a screenshot of something in the attempt to paint a person or an event in a certain way, always push to get the full context of the situation. And if they won't give it to you, look for it yourself or ask around. I've said this before on Twitter, but solo stans thrive off people who don't do research. So by double checking your sources, you can reduce their influence. Tip number 3. Watch BTS's content on your own. The content posted by BTS in Big Hit/HYBE are the best sources to draw your knowledge from. When it comes to the boys and their relationship with their fans, the company, and each other, nothing can tell you that story better than BTS themselves. We as ARMYs are fortunate enough that BTS have documented so much of their lives on camera, and that their company is relatively transparent with how they operate. So I urge everyone, especially newer ARMYs, to dive into their content and see for yourself what they're about. Don't let people's opinions on the timeline influence how you see them. Tip number 4. If solo stans try to say that you offended them in some way, do not cater to their feelings. As long as you haven't said anything wrong, don't offer clarifications on your tweets for them, don't apologize to them, and certainly don't delete your tweets either. If you do, then it gives solo stans the message that if enough of them bombard you with hate, they can make you bend to their whim. What I suggest you do if you're getting unreasonably attacked by solo stans is mute the tweet or tweets in question and close your DMs. When they don't have a way to directly contact you, they can't get into your head. Also, I would recommend setting up two-step verification on Twitter because I've had experiences where solo stans have tried to get into my account after I made a tweet they didn't like, so the link on how to set this up will be in the description below. Tip number 5. If you see solo stan rhetoric on the timeline, call it out. Don't just block them and ignore it. Solo stands have become such a big issue in the past couple of years because we ignored them and hoped that they would fade back into the shadows. What happened instead is they grew without needing to worry about us refuting their narratives. On top of that, by publicly calling them out, newer armies have the opportunity to see for themselves how we deal with solo stands and can learn from us. Ignoring them is just not enough. We may have tricked ourselves into thinking it worked in the past, but in the long run, it's not sustainable. As far as I'm concerned, solo stands are nothing more than weeds in this garden that we call our fandom. And if your garden has weeds, are you going to ignore them and hope that they'll go away? Or are you going to go into your shed and bust out the herbicide? You tell me. Tip number 6. Don't make excuses for solo stands. Just don't. Saying that they can stay as long as they don't disrespect the other members is a stupid argument, because solo stand's very existence is disrespecting BTS's wishes for people to love and support all 7 of them. The second you express sympathy for solo stands, they'll latch onto you and try to control you. Solo stands have no affiliation with BTS whatsoever. These are not people you want to side with, and you are not obligated to cater to their feelings. Catering to their feelings is what got us here in the first place. If anything, we should be pushing for more people to denounce solo stands, especially member-focused accounts. A lot of armies are unknowingly following accounts that may seem innocent because they're doing something like posting cute pictures of a particular BTS member. But these accounts allow solo stands to follow them and influence their behavior and beliefs. We need to start working to hold accounts of all sizes, accountable. And if they can't take responsibility, then we unfollow them and go follow accounts that are more than welcome to call solo stands and diet solo stands out. Last but not least, tip number 7. Just trust the boys. BTS are a group of 7 grown men who are currently in their mid-20s to early 30s, and they're only going to get older from here on out. They are not children, and they are fully capable of expressing discomfort if they do not enjoy something or are feeling wronged by their label. Don't you think for a second that they need us fans to overstep and go on a witch hunt for anyone on their behalf. They know what's best for them, and if they re-sign to their company for an extra 7 years, it means that they have faith that Big Hit will treat them with the respect they deserve. If worse comes to worse, then BTS have their own legal consultants outside the company. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, they don't need us to send trucks, write emails, and trend hashtags for every non-issue under the sun. BTS can decide for themselves if and when they want to discuss an issue. It's not our place as fans to decide that for them. If you're an army and you trust BTS, then to an extent you also need to trust their label, but trust does not mean blind devotion. If Big Hit or HYBE messes up, then we as fans have a right to call that out, but constantly eyeing these companies under a lens of unwarranted suspicion is not helpful and only increases paranoia. Have faith that BTS made the right choice. I promise you, you will feel so much more at peace if you put your faith in BTS's decisions. To conclude this video, solo stands, whether we like it or not, cause so many problems in the fandom that I feel a lot of people don't even realize. Back in the days when our fandom was smaller, it was easier to pretend that they weren't there, but now solo stands can do real damage past trending hashtags. They're organized to the point where they can use their presence to pull money together for questionable projects and bully anyone who disagrees with their methods or their opinions, even if it means bullying the members of BTS themselves. I feel like a big reason why solo stands have not been backed into a corner yet is because of the fact that they're not given the same treatment as AKGs. BTS have said out of their own mouths that they want us to love and appreciate all 7 members, yet people still justify the existence of solo stands because they're not AKGs. And this lack of urgency to purge the fandom of solo stands is what gives solo stands opportunities to gain foothold into important conversations regarding the boys. The biggest issue is that the solo stan community is seen as this separate entity that exists outside the boundaries of our fandom, but it really isn't. People keep worrying that one day solo stans will infiltrate our fandom, but the harsh reality is that they're already here. Solo stans and diet solos with thousands of followers don't just come from thin air. Real people in the fandom are giving solo stans a platform out of naivety or out of fear of being targeted by them and labeled as an OT6. As a result, solo stans have managed to worm their way into our fandom and build up their platforms from the inside to spread their harmful narratives. And if this keeps up, the fandom division will only get worse. Going forward, if we want the solo stan problem to disappear, we need to start looking at solo stans for what they are: antis. They are anti-ARMY, anti-Big Hit, and most importantly, anti-BTS. Every time you like a post from a solo stan, you are liking the post of an anti. Every time you agree with a solo stan, you are agreeing with an anti. Every time you defend the opinion of a solo stan, you are defending the opinion of an anti. I really want to drive this point home because I want people to realize who exactly they're giving a platform to when they engage with these solo stans. You're giving a platform to the very same people who don't even listen to the words of the people they claim to stan. Their opinions on anything regarding the career of any of the members are invalid and should be treated as such. All in all, we as a fandom need to be better at standing our ground against them. Solo stans may be big, but we are bigger. When you realize how much of their intimidation comes from numbers and not from intelligence, you'll see how easy it is to deplatform them by publicly deconstructing their narratives. We can fight them off if we can recognize the signs and know when to call out their BS, but if we want to pull this off, we have to be on the same page. We all need to agree that solo stans are a huge problem and that they have no place in or out of our fandom. If you know anyone who needs to be educated on solo stans, I encourage you to send them this video. We may not have figured out a concrete solution on how to tackle this problem just yet, but the least we can do is prevent any more armies from being used by solo stans. For all of you that have reached the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. The video may have been rather bleak, but I honestly have immense faith in this fandom. If we all come together, rest assured, we can turn the situation around once and for all.